Welcome to the Life-Giving Leader Podcast. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Life-Giving Leader Podcast. This is episode 7 for those of you keeping track at home. My name is Tyler Reagan. I am your host and glad to be with you. Got a great episode today. Dr. Derwin Gray, a longtime NFL player, a legend at BYU, just football, and then he found Jesus, and the rest is history, as they say. Been pastoring churches for a long time, and just a great leader and friend. Has a new book coming out. Actually, the day this releases, the book's coming out, and it's awesome. I think it's super important right now, and I just couldn't wait to have him on the Life-Giving Leader Podcast. So before we get started, as you know, I've had friends who have helped make this podcast a reality. My friends at Retro 8 Films create incredible video content that helps endear people to your brands. People like Chick-fil-A, Delta, other organizations, Catalyst, they did a lot with us. But avoid wasting time and money on content that doesn't convert and elevate your brand. I'm telling you, don't waste your money. Find great organizations, great people like Retro 8 Films, and get connected with them. So go to retro8films.com to get started. So I'm so glad to have you back with me today here in the studio. I've been working on this episode. I've got a couple more fun ones next week. Now, I know if you're listening, some of you are like super detailed people. I mentioned last week that Devon Franklin was going to be on. But because of Derwin, the conversation we had, I felt like it was the right week to do this and have Derwin. Devon will be with us next week. But I have to give a big, like when I say big, like ginormous caveat to this episode. Derwin and I recorded this a few weeks ago before the incident with George Floyd and all the things that have continued to rise to the top of our cultural realities. And so we didn't really get to talk about that, one, because it hadn't happened yet. But we do talk a little bit about multiracial churches and what it looks like to lead people of different backgrounds and different color. And I think Derwin's an expert on some of these conversations, and I'm grateful for that. And I felt like this was the right time for us to have this conversation and to spend some time with Derwin. I just need to say, though, from my perspective, and again, everybody has thoughts, but I don't know how you can have many other thoughts but empathy and sympathy and sadness for what happened. And so I just need you to know that that's where I'm at. And he was killed. And it's brutal, and it's awful. And I just pray that our leaders and we as church leaders can step up and make changes. And, we sat with our 2 boys, and we just walked through and talked about what we believe, that God has made everyone in his image, and that God loves us equally, and he cares for us equally. And we each have the same amount of worth, no matter where you're from, socioeconomic status, no matter your pedigree, no matter your color. It's all in God's story. He uniquely made each of us. You guys know me. You've been with me long enough. You know that I'm super passionate about that. And so we didn't really get to talk about that in the episode, but I just needed you to know that this has been a really hard week for all of us. And I continue to pray that God would give me the words and the thoughts to be able to help be part of the solution. And so I'm thankful for our friends who are continuing to fight for what's right. And so anyway, couple things. Again, if you've been listening to the podcast at all, and a good bit of you have, and I'm very grateful for that. If you would share about the podcast, again, the Life-Giving Leader Podcast, and also rate it on iTunes or anywhere you listen to podcast, I'd be super thankful. Just getting the word out. If there's an episode or a quote that you like, if you'd post that would help a ton and allow some other people to join this community. I'm grateful that each week you guys have stayed with it. So thanks for that. A couple things, just to let you know, again, next week, Devon Franklin, if you've ever led a team or you love Hollywood and you love movies and things like that, this is going to be a great episode for you because we talk all about those sorts of things. And then finally, I can't believe it's June 2nd. I mean, I literally can't believe it. So for those of you who are wondering how my handicap's doing, for the first time in my entire golfing career, it dropped below 4. So I'm a 3.9 right now. And I'm going to keep you on this because my goal is to become a scratch golfer. That's one of my lifetime goals. And so I'm going to keep you posted. I am not cheating. I am playing straight up. I'm putting things out so that we can keep this handicap real and keep working on it. So I will keep you posted on that. Thanks for caring, which about 2 of you do. But for those of you that don't, just bear with me. I'm just going to talk about it a little bit because I'm trying to figure out some of those sports. Now, the Premier League does start back in a week or two, so I'm pretty pumped about that. And for those of you listening have no idea what we're talking about, Google that because now you'll be a part of my family. So without further ado, I want to get to this interview. One of the quotes that I loved about this, Derwin talked about his new book, The Good Life. And it's all about happiness and where do we find it? Where does Jesus talk about happiness? And this quote, I just love it. I love it, love it, love it for being a life-giving leader, for being a life-giving person, that happiness is becoming who you were made to be. And again, if you've read my book or you've listened to anything that I've ever talked about, you know this is central to what I believe in leadership. Great leaders are happy leaders, and great leaders know because they're happy that they've become who they were meant to be. So this is just a fantastic conversation. I'm grateful for Dr. Derwin Gray, and here it is, my conversation with Derwin Gray. Welcome back to the Life Giving Leader podcast. Today I've got a special treat. It's a bonus episode right here because we've got a pretty incredible leader, friend I met years ago that we haven't seen each other in a little while, but grateful that Derwin Gray, Pastor Derwin Gray, is on the Zoom link with us. How we doing, Derwin?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to be with you and good to see you. Glad to reconnect, and thanks for letting me hang out with you and your tribe.
Absolutely. So Derwin is the pastor at Transformation Church in South Carolina. Man, by the way, I didn't realize you've got all these degrees from you've got to be mentored by some pretty amazing people. And Derwin, for me, one of my claim to fame is I got mentored and discipled by Robert Coleman, who wrote the Master Plan of Evangelism years ago. And I bet you with Scott McKnight and Norman Geisler, who have been part of your life, that's a pretty cool treat, isn't it?
It is, man. God in his providence allowed me to connect with Dr. Geisler, who was a world-renowned theologian, philosopher, apologist, and then Scott McKnight for my doctorate is a world-leading New Testament scholar. And so God has been incredibly gracious, man. And as a former NFL player, one of the things that you recognize early on to thriving is you have to constantly be a reader and a learner.
Yeah.
And so you're always learning, you're always wanting to not just acquire cognitive information, but to embody that information you're learning, which turns into wisdom. And so Scott McKnight has helped me tremendously. Dr. Geisler has helped me. Dr. Tony Evans is a mentor from afar. And so, yeah, man, I'm Dr. Derwin Gray. My heart and my passion is to take deep theological concepts and truths and make them simple, not simplistic, but simple.
Yeah.
I believe that a part of genius and as leaders, making the complex simple and clear is transformative. And so I work really, really hard at how do I make this as clear as possible? How do I make this as simple as possible? And that's where you can get depth and movement.
And I can't wait. We're going to talk in a few minutes about the new book you have. And I think that's really the special sauce of that book, is taking something that's been probably preached on more than any, potentially as many passages as there is. But so for people that don't know you, Derwin, necessarily, and you hinted at a little bit of your story, can you back us up a little bit and give us a little bit of background on how you got to today?
Yeah. So grew up in San Antonio, Texas. My parents were teenagers when I was born. They struggled with various issues. So my grandmother primarily raised me. And about age 13, I decided that football was going to be my way out of the environment that I was in. Ended up getting a football scholarship to Brigham Young University. So you got a young man from the hood going to a white, predominantly Mormon school. And it was a wonderful experience. Got a world-class education. Met my wife second semester of my freshman year. That was 1989. Became a BYU legend. Ended up getting drafted in the NFL. didn't really have a spiritual background.
Yeah.
Got saved by a teammate in the NFL on August 2nd, 1997. And I grew up as a compulsive stutterer. So the idea of being a pastor or speaking, I wouldn't even know what that was.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I did know is this, is that if Jesus loves me and he can change my life, then he can do that for anybody. And it would be a crime to not let other people know that. And so God began to just change my heart. And I got invited to speak at a youth event in 1999. And I was like, God, why are you sending me? I'm a compulsive stutterer.
Yeah.
Like, I'll fund it, but send somebody that can talk. And I just sense God saying, if I can raise my son from the dead, I can raise your tongue to talk. And so
Wow.
I trusted him, and God moved powerfully. And people just began to ask me to come and speak. And then about 2005, both my wife and I began to have this awakening that, man, as we read the New Testament, like we see churches that were centered on Jesus, centered on the gospel, that were multi-ethnic, that was about evangelism, mission, and justice. And so we were like, we need to plant a church like that. And so that led to planting Transformation Church in 2010. 4 of our first 6 years, we were one of the fastest growing churches in the country. And for an intentionally multi-ethnic church, that is like rare. Like we are a unicorn that as a Black pastor,
Yeah.
church is probably 50 to 55% white, everything else. And so we don't even report our numbers anymore, but we're continuing to still experience incredible growth. But it's not at the expense of talking about serious issues like
Yep.
injustice, you know. And so so that's how we got to lead Transformation Church. It was 4 of us around our kitchen table, and we got a staff of nearly 50 now. And
Unbelievable.
God's doing some incredible things.
Yeah. And I think, Derwin, one of the things I've had the most respect for is exactly what you just said, is that you consistently have the hard conversations as a church, not in the private. But I think it goes back to what you talked about a second ago, which is fighting so hard to make really complex things simple and understandable. I know Donald Miller always says now that clear is the new cool. And, it's no longer about how do we have to be super trendy in the way we say it. We need to be really clear on the way we say it. And I didn't even know that about the stutter. And I just think that's an amazing story of God's faithfulness and your obedience at the same time. And so you've been, football, you've been to the NFL, then you've been leading churches. Where did leadership grab a hold of your heart? Where did you see that and go, man, I got to pay attention to how I lead and how I use my influence?
Well, growing up in Texas and playing football, leadership is just, it's like the air that you breathe.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's one of these things where leadership flows out of embodiment. Like, I think a lot of times, particularly in American context, we think leadership is telling people what to do. Whereas I view leadership as embodying what you want others to become. And so every football team that I've played on from middle school to the NFL, I wound up being a team captain. So I was a team captain in the NFL, team
Yep.
captain at a major program in college, team captain at a major program in high school. And so it was like God has given me that gift, but that gift is realized not by pursuing leadership, but by pursuing him and also wanting to be an embodiment. John Maxwell says leadership is influence, and I agree with that. I would just add that leadership is not only influence, but it's influencing people by becoming what you want other people to be. And you see that in Jesus's model. Is Jesus said, watch me, listen to me, now go do what I did.
Yep.
And he empowers us to do it. And so my heart for leadership is for leaders to wrap a towel around their waist and serve. Like, one of my pet peeves is like pastors walking around like they're celebrities. And I'm like, bro, really? Like,
Right.
it's Jesus's gospel. It's the Holy Spirit's power. These are the Father's people. Like, what is there to be boastful about? And I
There's
think a
not.
lot of times we use ministry to prop up our fragile egos, and ego stands for edging God out. And so my model of ministry leadership is Jesus.
Yeah.
Any type of leadership. And he says to the disciples in Matthew 6, like, we're not going to lord over others like the Gentiles do. And then he wraps a towel around his waist and he serves. And so as a pastor, what we say at Transformation Church is this: every leader is not a disciple, but every disciple should be a leader.
Yep.
And we want the heartbeat of our leadership to pulsate from discipleship, becoming conformed to the image of Christ.
So when you hear the phrase that we taught, that this podcast is titled after, a life-giving leader,
yeah,
I would assume that's the kind of attributes that you would put to that. What comes to mind when you hear that phrase?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind as a life-giving leader is you recognize that when your fruit grows on someone else's tree, you're leading.
That's exactly right.
Recognize that people don't exist to prop up your platform. You recognize that you are pouring into people, not so they can do a job, but so they can be a better husband, a better wife, a better son, a better daughter, a better human being. And the byproduct of helping people become a better human being is they do their jobs with effectiveness.
That's right.
And so you are adding life. You're not, sadly, man, I mean, we've deteriorated to a point in our country where character doesn't matter in leadership. It's get the job done, tell people what's on your mind, win at all costs. And we need to redefine what winning is. We need to redefine we need to really go back, particularly for Christians. We really need to go back and say, what would Jesus say about this? And let me dive into philosophy for a minute. The only Western philosophy ever developed in the United States of America was by John Dewey in the 1940s, and it's called pragmatism. And pragmatism says this: if it works, do it.
Right.
Versus, if it's right, do it. And we live in a world now where money, fame, and status says do whatever you have to do to get that. And I believe a leader says, no, we don't do it because it's successful. We do what we do because it's right.
Yep. Oh, man. Because that's, the main phrase I had when I came up with that, or when I was writing Life-Giving Leader, was that when life flows, influence grows. And to me, it's all about proper flow of life. It's not towards having everybody flow it towards you. It's the other way around. It's bringing that to the people. And I think what's interesting, that plays into really this book that you've just written, because we live in a country that's fighting for happiness consistently. Yeah. Like that's almost the number one goal, right? Is what do I do to be happy? How many things do I need to buy to be happy? How many things?
Well, it's like written into the Declaration of Independence.
That's true.
And so like my book is called The Good Life, what Jesus teaches about finding true happiness. My good friend Beth Moore wrote the foreword. And basically what happened was, Tyler, is in 2014, as I'm pastoring and counseling, I'm finding that non-believers are not happy, believers are not happy, teenagers aren't happy, middle-aged people aren't rich people aren't happy. No one was happy. And what I found was we were looking for happiness in our accomplishments. We were looking in happiness at our possessions. We were looking at happiness in things that could be taken away. And so I said, well, let's see what Jesus has to say. Yep. And so my book is based on the Beatitudes, which you find in Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 through 12. And it starts with the words, blessed are the blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs will be the kingdom of heaven. Well, the word blessed, makros in the Greek, literally means happy. Happy. So Jesus in the Beatitudes is like, sit at my feet. I want to really teach you how to be happy. And when you look at the 8 characteristics of the Beatitudes are a happy person, it's actually a portrait of Jesus. So Jesus in his humanity is the prototype of what we were created to be. And so when we say yes to Jesus for the forgiveness of sins, he begins the transformation process to make us mirror images of him. And so happiness is this. Happiness is becoming who you were meant to be.
Amen to that.
And so that's what we've done. At the end of every chapter, I have a section called Marinate on this that begins with a prayer that I wrote, 6 questions to reflect on, and then 6 statements to remember. And then at the end of the book, I have what's called the Happiness Manifesto that you read every day to wallpaper your mind with this truth. And then I have a 30-day happiness challenge where you slowly and prayerfully read through Matthew chapter 5, 3 through 12. And the method of praying and reading that is an ancient discipline called Lecta Divina, which means sacred reading, where you're reading it slow and you're letting it just marinate in you. And so what I think is, in the midst of this COVID, is the sandcastles that we as Christians and people have built their lives on. This COVID wave came in, knocked it down, and beneath the sandcastles was all of our idols.
Yes.
And now people are wanting to hear from Jesus afresh.
That's good.
And so primarily in writing this, I want people to sit at Jesus's feet and enter into the holiness, enter into the good life that he offers. So here's one of the key terms in the book. Happiness and holiness are 2 sides of the same coin.
Yeah, I was curious on how you said that.
Yeah, happiness and holiness are 2 sides of the same coin. Theologically, the word holy means set apart. So the minute that we say yes to Christ, we are set apart for God's purposes and not our own. A lot of Western Christianity is, I've invited Jesus into my heart, now do what I say. No, God invites us into his story. Second, holy means the blood of Christ cleans us. We're purified from sin. Then thirdly, it means that we progressively begin to reflect the one who purified us from sin. So the happier we are, the holier we will become. The holier we are, the happy we will become, because our happiness is not contingent upon perpetually good things happening to us externally. It's based on what God is doing us internally and eternally through his love. And so happiness is not I'm walking around always smiling. The way I say it in the book is this: happiness is not confidence, it's Godfidence. That in the arena of life, it's going to be okay because my Redeemer lives, his redemptive purposes stand, and I will stand with the one who overcame the sin and the grave. And that's a happiness that cannot be stolen. Why? Because it's rooted in Jesus.
That's great,
and
Derwin.
So can you imagine leading as a person who happy are the humble? Like, who doesn't want to work for a humble leader or be that way? Happy are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Imagine if your corporate leaders listening now said, we're going to make profits by helping the environment, by helping our employees. Like Chick-fil-A is the model. Like, if you work for Chick-fil-A, you're going to be better as a person. Imagine if all the leaders listening to your podcast said, man, we're going to hunger and thirst for righteousness. Imagine this. When it says, happy are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Man, we could use mercy in this country. So the good life is what a good leader looks like.
That's great.
And how many leaders of high capacity aren't happy? Like, how many pastors do we know? Big old giant churches, and we got a big old giant church too, but they're not happy.
Right.
There's no joy, because if you're not happy with 10,000, if you're not happy with 10 people at your church, you won't be happy with 100,000.
That's exactly
because
right.
of this. Happiness is not found in accomplishments.
No,
it's found in the one who accomplished the greatest work ever, Jesus. And he wants to mold us, and he wants to shape us into a holy community that reflects the Beatitudes. So Man,
Love that, Derwin.
this is by far the best book that I've ever written.
Yeah.
I actually wrote this book without being working on my doctorate
Right.
or
Right.
working on my master's. And matter of fact, Lisa Turkhurst, who's a mutual friend of ours, says this book has the most solid teaching on happiness I've ever read.
That's awesome.
And so when Lisa says stuff like that,
You got to listen to it.
yeah, absolutely, man.
I love it, Derwin. And I want to say thank you for writing it. I think you're exactly right. And something that God's stirring in my calling continually is to invest and pour life into leaders. That's the space. And I think you're hit the nail on the head that there's so many leaders that can honestly preach the paint off the wall, but that message hasn't necessarily permeated their day in and day out leadership and their life. And so I'm grateful that you're stepping into that conversation. Couple lightning round questions. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right. Best marriage advice you and your wife have ever been given?
Best marriage advice me and my wife have ever been given is this: forgive each other because Jesus forgave you.
Yeah. Yeah. Enough said right there. That's good. Favorite movie of all time?
Whoo, favorite movie of all time. Man. Boy, I've got so many. Oh, this is lightning round, right? This is
Yep.
not very lightning. Man, I'm gonna have to say right now, I'm gonna go with Forrest Gump.
It's a great one. Hey, that's, by the way, out of my first round of interviews, that's the second time Forrest Gump has made number one. It's a great movie. Are you kidding me? Okay. Best leadership advice you've ever been given? That could obviously be in a whole nother podcast, but and we've talked a lot about it.
You know what? What I would say the best leadership advice I've ever been given is love people, don't use people.
Oh man, amen to that, Derwin. And that's worth a leadership fight for your whole life, right there, in my opinion. Last one. This is a hard one. This might be harder than the movie question. If for the rest of 2020 you could only listen to one band and their entire catalog of music, who would that be for you?
It would be Transformation Church Music, led by KJ Scriven. Fantasia's a part of our worship team. We have incredible,
love it,
worship folks. Listen to this, bro. We've got 3 people on our worship team that has Grammys.
That's not bad. I'm doing an interview or releasing a podcast with Kevin Olasola from Pentatonics. And, same kind of thing where he's like, yeah, I got 3 Grammys. You're like, who are these people?
Yeah.
Well, Derwin, I'm beyond honored to sit and chat with you, and I'm grateful for the good life. How can people stay in touch with you?
Yeah. So go to thegoodlifebook.net, thegoodlifebook.net.
Perfect.
Also, Lifeway is selling The Good Life at a ridiculous, insane, incredible 50% discount.
Wow.
So you can get The Good Life for only $8.99, 50% discount. So goodlifebook.net, goodlifebook.net. You can order it wherever you order your books from, but Lifeway is doing a 50% discount. People can find me at transformationchurch.tc. transformationchurch.tc. We're the Transformation Church in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, not the Tulsa area.
Love it. Derwin, you're a great leader, man. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the way you've been obedient to God's calling in your life and stepping into hard space, even early on into that youth gathering. And I think you've continued to live your life like that. And so as someone who admires you and has a ton of respect for you, man, I'm grateful for your leadership, and I'm grateful for the time today.
Hey, man, thank you. Keep up the great work and keep giving life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Derwin. If you want to follow along, as he mentioned, for the book, you can go to thegoodlifebook.net, thegoodlifebook.net. You can also keep up with him and the church. You can go to, again, Derwin L. Gray. You can just go to derwinlgray.com. You can find out all about, you can connect to the church, his podcast, marinate on that, and all his social media is Derwin L. Gray as well. And so, again, I honestly wish that we had been able to have this conversation after some of the things that have gone down, because I would love to hear and get his perspective. But I'm so grateful for so many leaders who have stepped up, who have said the things that we're trying to understand and cope with. And my prayers continue to go out to the families of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and people who have been taken too soon. My prayers go out to the police officers that are trying to do the right thing, who are standing up to protect us. And my heart, my life, and my prayers go out to all those who have suffered at the hands of injustice and the hands of authority taken out of context. And so would you just join me in those prayers as we continue to move our nation forward to a better tomorrow? So thanks for being a part. I pray this week that you will be the most life-giving to the people around you, and maybe it needs to be the people very closest to you. And so have a great week. We'll see you next week with Devon Franklin.